That's awesome, isn't it? Here's an anonymous Samaritan woman that Jesus just happens to meet by a well in Samaria, and she has a vital messianic expectation. I can't explain why exactly. It may have well been the work of the Spirit of God preparing the world. But in the first century that Jesus came to, they were looking for the Messiah. And then, even though it had all of these advantages that we've spoke about, the political unity, the legal system, the widespread trade, the common language, the religious pluralism, the good roads and infrastructure for travel, the whole setup that we've just described in the last 5 or 10 minutes, I want you to see that despite all of that, we can say that the success of Christianity is still an incredibly unlikely story. In the period that we're going to talk about in the next several lectures, Christianity went from a despised, illegal, persecuted religion to become the dominant force of Western civilization and world civilization. You've got to admit that's a pretty remarkable story, isn't it? To go from a despised and persecuted religion, and we'll point ourselves to a time, again we'll get to this in a future lecture, where in the early 300s, it looked like Christianity would perish from the Roman Empire. It honestly did. It looked like it might be totally finished. To go from that to being the dominant cultural and philosophical and well, just the dominant force of Western civilization, you have to admit, is an amazing story. And so here we find this very impressive setting that Christianity comes from, and the success of Christianity really is almost despite these advantages, not necessarily because of them. So as we move on, let me make a second point, just to really emphasize with you the idea that Christianity, in its historical setting, we would have to say that Christianity is a religion, it's a faith very much interested in history. Notice this, when Paul describes what the gospel is in 1 Corinthians 15, do you remember what he describes us there? He says, for the gospel that I brought unto you, and what he describes, do you remember what he says? He says, the death, the burial, and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Now what is it about those three things? Those are historical events. Christianity is deeply, deeply rooted in historical events. It's not primarily about a teaching, right? It's not primarily about a philosophy. Christianity is primarily, first you have to deal with historical events. The idea of history is essential to Christianity. If you look at the first few verses of the Gospel of Luke, where he says, I'm offering to you historical truth, things that were surely known among us. Well, along those lines, we should really be able to understand for ourselves that in ancient times, secular historians confirm very strongly the existence and the ministry of Jesus of Nazareth. Right? This is a very important idea. You should know that the record and the evidence for Christianity is not only found within the historically reliable documents we know as the Gospels and the Acts of the Apostles, but it's also found within several secular historians as well. For example, the ancient historian Thallus, you can date him about the year AD 52. He mentioned Jesus and the historical events mentioned in the Gospels in a history that's lost, but was quoted by later writers like the Christian Julius Africanus in the year 221. Thallus made specific mention of the darkness that came upon the whole world when Jesus died. And he explained it as an eclipse. Although you have to admit, if you know much about astronomy, not that we would expect Thallus to know about it, but during the Passover, the moon is full. That's part of the way that they set the date for Passover, is by the full moon. And it is astronomically impossible to have an eclipse during a full moon. It just doesn't work that way with where the moon is in the sky. This is what he said. He said, on the whole world there pressed a most fearful darkness, and the rocks were rent by an earthquake, and in many places in Judea and other districts were thrown down. This darkness Thallus, in the third book of his history, calls, as it appears to me without reason, an eclipse of the sun. This is Julius Africanus, again, quoting this ancient historian Thallus. Now, unfortunately, the document of Thallus, his writing, is lost to history. We just don't have it. But we have it quoted in some later Christian writers. Second, there's a letter from the Syrian Mara bar Seraphon to his son where he mentions Jesus as a historical figure. He talks about Jesus in the context of the Athenians and Socrates. Well, let me just read it to you. He says, "What advantage did the Athenians gain from putting Socrates to death? Famine and plague came upon them as a judgment for their crime. What advantage did the men of Samos gain from burning Pythagoras? In a moment their land was covered with sand. What advantage did the Jews gain from executing their wise king? It was just after that that the kingdom was abolished. God justly avenged these three wise men. The Athenians died of hunger, the Samanians were overwhelmed by the sea, the Jews ruined and driven from their land, live in complete dispersion. But Socrates did not die for good. He lived on in the teaching of Plato. Pythagoras did not die for good. He lived on in the statute of Hera. Nor did the wise king die for good. He lived on in the teaching which he had given." Now remember, this is a completely secular man. But yet, he mentions Jesus as being a completely historical figure on par with these other ones. And he mentions him in a way that he doesn't really need to explain the story of Jesus, right? He understands that his son knows who he's talking about. Again, not a Christian man, but understanding this, it just helps us to understand that the history of Jesus and that he was accepted as a historical figure was widespread in this early historical period. Next, we have something from the Jewish historian Josephus. He wrote about Jesus, and Josephus clearly spoke of Jesus as a historical person. By the way, Josephus also confirmed the historicity of many New Testament events. This is a famous quote from Josephus from his Antiquities of the Jews. He says, quote, "Now there was about this time Jesus a wise man, if it be lawful to call him a man, for he was a doer of wonderful works. A teacher of such men as received the truth with pleasure. He drew over to him both many of the Jews and many of the Gentiles. He was the Christ. And when Pilate, at the suggestion of the principal men among us, had condemned him to the cross, those that loved him at the first did not forsake him, for he appeared to them alive again the third day, as the divine prophets had foretold, and these 10,000 other wonderful things concerning him. And the tribe of Christians, so named from him, are not extinct at this day." Now you should know that some say that early Christians corrupted this quotation to their own advantage. But when Origen cited Josephus in 250 AD, and when Eusebius quoted Josephus in 324 AD, this is exactly how the quotation read in those early citations. By the way, Josephus also makes specific mention of John the Baptist and of James the Just, who was James, the one who wrote the book of James and who was the half-brother of Jesus. And so again, we find historical confirmation for the story of Christianity within secular history. Here's a fourth example here, Lucian. Lucian was a Roman comedian and wrote a play mocking Christians, but in his play he treats Jesus as completely a historical figure. This is the quote from Lucian. He says, Jesus was, quote, "the man who was crucified in Palestine because he introduced this new cult into the world. Furthermore, their first lawgiver persuaded them that they were all brothers of one another after they had transgressed once for all by denying the Greek gods and by worshiping that crucified sophist himself and living under his laws." Now you can see Lucian's attitude, right? Is he a supporter of Christianity? No, he mocks Christianity. Nevertheless, he fully recognizes the historicity of Jesus Christ. And then for a final source here, we look to the Jewish rabbinical writings. Well, perhaps not a final source, but the Jewish rabbinical